525. When Ellen White is talking, she's talking with reference to the time of trouble. But she says something that's very important. She says that it is in God's plan to grant in answer to prayer that which he would otherwise not grant, should we not thus pray. Should I say that again? It is God's plan to grant in answer to prayer that which he would otherwise not grant, should we not pray. So there are things that God is willing to give to us without praying. Are you following? There are things that God can give to us. You see, no one of us, maybe some of us, let me not disqualify. Maybe there are people that pray that the sun may come up consistently every day. Maybe there are people whose faith allows them to pray for those things. That the universe suspended in air, that it may not otherwise fall. Maybe there are people that pray for that. But the majority of us, those are not things that occur to us to pray for. Are we together? We just assume it happens. Right? We just assume that Newton was right when he was calculating the law of gravity and gravitational forces, that if I'm boarding a plane, it must go up, it must not come down. But God grants answers to those prayers without us praying for them. It's not that those are things we should not be praying for. There are things we should be praying for, but God grants answers to those prayers without you praying. But there are also things which God will not give you except in answer to prayer. You may go all you want, you may do whatever you want to do, but if you do not pray specifically for the very thing, the answer will not come. Not because God does not intend to give you, but because he is waiting for you to pray for it. Let me give you an example. Solomon in Proverbs says favor is deceitful and beauty is vain. What does it continue to say? Does anyone know that verse? But a woman who fears the Lord, she is to be praised. So what are we getting told here? A woman who fears the Lord will only come in answer to prayer. Are you following? Yeah. So getting married is easy. You may get married. There is no lack of women. There is actually now more women that need to be married than there are men that can marry. Did you know that? Because some men have decided that they will marry from the same species. But the Bible is telling us that when it comes to the quality of a woman, the one that you read from Proverbs chapter 31, the one that Lemuel's mother is talking about, that says that her children rise up early in the morning and call her blessed. That one, she is from the Lord. And the Bible is saying she only comes in answer to what? Prayer. Victory over sin is not something that is beyond the capability of God to do. But you are not going to overcome alcoholism except by you specifically praying for it. So, my daughter, the world is in danger if Adventist men are not going to pray for things. Because there are certain things that will only come in answer to prayer. Let me tell you about another one. Revival and reformation. When Ellen White in the Signs of the Times writes, she says, a revival of primitive godliness is the most urgent and the most important of all our needs. And to seek this must be our first work. In other words, of everything that the church needs now, revival and reformation is the most urgent. Are you following? But then she continues to say, revival will only come through prayer. So why have we not received the latter rain? This is not a trick question. The answer is what I have been talking about. Why have we not received the latter rain? We have not prayed for it, Mkandla. Because the latter rain will not come just because we are praying for things. The latter rain will only come when we specifically pray for the latter rain. When the early rain was poured in Acts chapter 2 verse 1, the Bible says they were in one accord, in one place. Now when you read from Acts chapter 1 from verse 11, you will be told that they gathered there because number one, they knew that it was the time for praying for the latter rain. Number two, they knew that without the latter rain, they were not going to be able to fulfill the commission of spreading the gospel. They were not going to be able, remember Christ had given them a command to preach the gospel to all the world. And they knew that without the latter rain, they were not going to go. So the first thing that they do before they go preach is to gather together and pray specifically for the latter rain. And when the time for the latter rain came, they were in one accord, having prayed for it. And then it came in answer to prayer. So the last day, church, there is nothing. When you read from Revelation chapter 10, let me read this verse. This was not a part of the verses I prepared, but I'm inspired to read it. Revelation chapter 10. Verse 10 and 11. And I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up, and it was in my mouth as sweet as honey. And as soon as I had eaten it, my belly was bitter. Verse 11 says, and he said unto me, you must prophesy again before many nations and tongues and kings, for there shall be time no longer. Now, Revelation 10, let me summarize it real quick. Revelation 10, John is shown a vision. Now, he is taken and he is given a scroll. And he is told to eat the scroll. Right? Are you following? Yeah. He takes the scroll, he eats it. And then when he eats the scroll, he is told before it happens that when you eat the scroll, it's going to taste sweet in your mouth, but it's going to turn your belly. And then he's given the scroll. He eats it and he says, indeed, it was sweet in my mouth, but it was bitter in my belly, where we were reading. And then after it was bitter, he is told, you must prophesy again to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people, because there shall be time no longer. What is happening here? John was being shown the experience of the Adventists during the period from 1833 to 1844. Are we together? I don't have time to go into the specifics, but take it from me. Now, God was describing a situation where people would come upon a truth, the truth of the three angels' message, and they would preach it. And there would be joy that would come from preaching the gospel, but they would experience a disappointment. Hence, he says, it's going to be sweet in the mouth, but bitter in the stomach. Now, the disappointment comes because as they are preaching the gospel, they are preaching the gospel saying that in a few years, they start from 1833. By the time it gets to 1843, a lot of the people that they were preaching the gospel with have died in the faith of the message. And now they are saying, next year, this time, in October, Jesus is going to be coming. So there was a lot of joy around that. And, my church heritage is running away from me. Is it Charles Fitch who died a week before? Master guides, remind me. Was it? Alana Lisagwas. Now, even one of them dies before. And when I was reading from the church heritage, when they were comforting the family, they were telling them to not worry. Because next week, you are going to see your father. The conviction that followed the preaching of the gospel was unlike any other, because they were not talking about a Jesus who is coming again indefinitely. They were talking about a Jesus who was coming on the 22nd of October. Now, Jesus does not come, and they are disappointed. Are we together? Now, hey, the Spirit is leading me in a different direction. Why were they disappointed? This is not a trick question. Why were they disappointed? They're expecting Jesus to come and it didn't come. Why else were they disappointed? What caused their disappointment? Nari? Yeah?
Serious business. They made serious business transactions in terms of their properties, exposing their properties, saying that Jesus is coming. And trying to find those that were still buying.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning to say that already there was those that didn't believe that this is going to happen. So I believe that those were disappointed. They were disappointed not only because they died. Jesus did not come. But they were like, my God just went to give away Friday.
Yeah.
Because I thought maybe he's coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's really disappointing. I mean, I'm thinking that might be one of the reasons.
Yeah. So, they're disappointed because they're expecting Jesus to come and he didn't come, right? They're disappointed because they actually placed their hopes on his coming. So if there were people that were trading stocks in the stock market, they actually sold all their stocks because they were saying, these stocks will be useless in a week, in a month, in a year. People that had land started thinking, why do I need all this land for? Because I'll be in heaven in October. And that didn't happen. But I also want to qualify something to you. Was John not told what was going to happen before it happened? Was he not? He's given the scroll and he's told what is going to be bitter. Right? But when he is eating it, it is sweet. When it is bitter, he is surprised. Now let's read Luke chapter 24 and then come back to qualify the statement. Verse 18. And one of them, whose name was Cleopas, answering said, are you the only stranger in Jerusalem that does not know the things that have come to pass in these days? And he said unto him, what things? And they said, concerning Jesus of Nazareth, which was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how the chief priests and our rulers delivered him to be condemned. Verse 21. But we trusted that it had been he which should have redeemed Israel. Verse 25. Then he said unto them, O you foolish and slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. So, there's a strange thing that's happening here. The question that Jesus asked these men is the question that I asked you. Why were they disappointed? Right? So Jesus is in the midst of disciples who are walking on their road to Emmaus after the disappointment. Jesus has died. They are disappointed. And Jesus is asking them, why are you disappointed? And they say, are you the only one in Jerusalem that doesn't know what happened here? Now let me just pause for a second. You will pray with me because I'm totally, I should close this. What I'm presenting on is entirely different from what I